Did you know that, on Discord, if you hit Control and /, it'll take you to a menu showing the app's built-in keyboard combos for certain mechanics? I probably won't ever use many of these, if any at all, but what's really interesting is if you quickly hit H, and right arrow key, N, and K. Doing so will show this. This is a reference to Akuma's signature super move in Street Fighter called Raging Demon. This was a fact given to me by tons of people, so I appreciate you all for that. Very cool stuff. I'm glad that many of you enjoy the off-topic non-Smash facts. But before we go back to Smash, I want to stick to Discord very briefly to say that my Discord server has been super revamped with tons of changes to it, including a better channel organization, a better mod staff, and plans for more events in the future. I'm going to be giving even more information at the end of the video about my Discord server, my Patreon, and the methods in which one should use to give their facts to me from now on, so please be sure to stick around to the end. Now for what you're here for. In my last video I made a super oopsie, in that I tested if the expression of a sleeping opponent's face would change with Kamikaze while they were asleep by using rest. Sure, yeah, Jigglypuff is asleep here technically, but this effect in reality is different from actual sleeping. This is something I knew too. I guess my brain was just sort of turned off in those moments. And yeah, when someone is actually asleep, Kamikaze will not change their expression still. Which I find really cool then, since even if Rest's sleeping animation is functionally just end lag, it's still treated the same as actually sleeping here. So that's neat. Thanks to Chibins for initially pointing this out to me, as well as I'm sure plenty of other people in the comments. And for some follow-up Beetle related questions, Megan Chandler asked what happens when the Beetle item gets stuck on the ceiling. In my last video I pointed out how the Metal Bowser took so long to be carried up by the Beetle that eventually the item just outright broke. I had said that this was the only time you'd see this breaking animation, but if you use the Beetle on someone while they're under a ceiling, the item will take no time at all to be completely destroyed. It will try to move past the ceiling for a split second, but if it gets stuck for even just a little bit longer than that, it's going to break. And following that, Heat Prick shows me what happens when someone uses the Beetle on an opponent who has a size change. This was likely initially tested to see if the speed of their ascent changed with their size, but as it turns out the Beetle will just outright not work on an opponent who's had their size change at all. Whether they're small from a poison mushroom, or big from a super mushroom, the Beetle will just bounce off. Something very important to note is that when you yourself have also changed size, and you throw the Beetle will still remain the normal size, and still not work. And the Beetle will also be normal sized in Special Smash, even when you've changed the sizes of the players themselves. But even if you're playing in a mode where the sizes are changed, the Beetle all of a sudden works properly against everyone, regardless of if they're large or tiny. So it seems to me that the game tries to see whether or not the opponent has undergone a size change when it determines if the Beetle works, rather than basing it on the character's actual size. So I suppose in this environment we can test to see if the size change does affect the ascent of Beetle. On this stage, Shulk stops being able to mash out Beetle at around 45%. And in Special Smash, when he's large, he can mash out after 45%, and even after 50%. So yeah, it seems that the Beetle ascends a little bit slower when Shulk is larger, so size change does have an effect. One thing I want to very quickly point out here is in regards to these sizes. Normally when you pick up a super mushroom and then pick up a poison mushroom, your size will simply revert back to normal, as if the two effects cancel each other out. With this fact in mind, I want to test what happened in Special Smash. I had gone with the assumption that your new sizes in Special Smash are based around the mushroom size changes. So I wanted to see if, say, getting the poison mushroom when in the Mega Special Smash would just revert you to the default size. So I put a Shulk on the left who had gotten the super mushroom, then a Shulk on the right who had gotten nothing. Then, in Special Smash, I put the naturally large Shulk on the left, and the Shulk who got the poison mushroom on the right. I know the camera angles aren't exactly identical, but when I put these images in Photoshop to overlay them, the Shulks on the left seem to match up almost perfectly. However, the Shulks on the right are very clearly different sizes, which can easiest be seen by the Monado's handle here. What this all means is that, in Special Smash, your base size is determined around the mushroom size changes. However, when you get the opposite mushroom, rather than sort of cancelling out the size change effect like normal, you'll actually become smaller than default for some reason. Speaking of size changes, somewhat similarly to the Beetle, Wario's Chomp simply won't work on someone if they've grown large from, say, the Super Mushroom. Though, unlike the Beetle, If Wario himself also gets a Super Mushroom, it'll work again. Chomp isn't completely locked out here. And also unlike the Beetle is this fact from Jackson LC regarding what happens if you chomp someone who is tiny. Yes, you do have the ability to chomp someone who's received a poison mushroom, and if you do so, the opponent will just sort of spin?
Help me!
This also works if Wario gets big and the opponent either remains normal size or gets smaller, so long as Wario is bigger than them. For some reason, the opponent just very awkwardly spins in a circle near Wario's mouth for the duration of the chomp, rather than, well, doing something normal. This works for the other characters too, regardless of their size, from what I gathered. I don't really know why this is the case, but it just looks really weird, and really funny. Oh, another tangent I want to get into regarding the timer of the size change. Normally there's a set time in which you'll remain the size that you've changed to. However, if the opponent is at 999%, Wario's chomp will last way longer. If you or the opponent undergo a size change, then the chomp is initiated, your size can't revert back to normal until after the move has ended, meaning you can't change size during the chomp. It makes sense to me, as changing size while inside of Wario's mouth could cause, problems, but yeah, something cool to note. Speaking of cool things, W2 Crispy had given me a ton of cool facts, but the fact that I wish to explicitly point out is in regards to ice climbers. As you probably know, normally when a character is on ice, they, well, slip. Their traction is greatly lowered when changing directions or coming to a stop, and this animation of them sliding can only be cancelled by a jump. Well, did you know that the ice climbers actually don't experience this? Their traction is identical to when they're on a normal surface. They even have little spikes on their shoes for this very reason. Passive abilities like this are insanely cool to me, sort of like how certain hydrophobic characters can take damage in water. And speaking of passive abilities, 360 No Soap had given me a really good fact regarding Bowser Jr. and Final Smashes. For those of you who don't know, Bowser Jr. has a passive ability where the hurt box of his body gives damage a 1.15 times multiplier, and the hurt box of his clown cart gives the damage a 0.88 times multiplier. Basically, Bowser Jr. himself takes more damage than normal, while the clown cart itself takes less damage than normal. So the question arises, what about for things like cutscene Final Smashes? To get a control group, I tested Shulk's Final Smash against another Shulk, with the default training mode settings and all of that. In total, the attack did 55.2%. Now, with Bowser Jr. as the opponent, the attack did a total of 63.4%, and KO'd him from that same position that Shulk was in the previous test. Rounding up, this is about a 1.15 times increase in damage. But when I tried to initiate the Final Smash on Bowser Jr. by hitting the cart, the total damage was decreased, but not by a lot, only down to 62.5%. What happened? Well, the initial hit normally does 3.6% as we saw with Shulk, but when the Final Smash hit Bowser Jr. at first, that initial hit did 4.1%. But when the Final Smash hit the cart, that initial hit did 3.1%, a decrease from the normal amount. However, the rest of the hits that were inside of the actual cutscene itself all did it with the 1.15 times multiplier, since the total damage difference here is only about 1%. So, the Final Smash's initial hit will be determined by which of Bowser Jr.'s hurt boxes you hit. However, the cutscene portion of the Final Smash will default to the body hurt box of Bowser Jr., likely to make the Final Smash more effective rather than less effective. I did do this with other characters too, and it seemed to be pretty consistent. However, I did notice something weird about Joker's Final Smash. The whole fact about the initial hit seems to remain true, but the growth in percent dealt is not. The normal damage is 52.8%. With Bowser Jr. it goes to 55.6%. The damage only increases by like 3-ish, which is definitely not a 1.15 times increase. But this increase in damage is not just by the initial hit either, since that would only increase it by 1%. So I have to wonder what exactly is going on here. Where is the damage even coming from? So I looked through the footage and I think I know. During the whole cutscene, we see many attacks being dealt, but the combo counter doesn't change, and there's no profiles on the bottom to show the change in percent. However, the very final hit does get registered here, and normally that final hit does 15.6% as we see of Shulk. But in both cases, with Bowser Jr. it does 17.9%. It seems that with Joker, the part of the Final Smash where it's all cutscene and nothing else, the multiplier just completely gets taken away, and the damage is calculated like anyone else. And the additional damage that we see here is calculated from the initial hit and that final hit. That's my hypothesis anyways, but it shows just how unique Joker's Final Smash is from the rest. Next up, Bootleg Boy had given me a fact regarding Cruel Smash. Normally when you go into a match, the timer in the top right corner counts how much time has passed by, to gauge how well you did in terms of speed and KOing opponents, or maybe to see how long you were able to last. Well, did you know that when you pause the game, that timer keeps going? If you're judged by how quickly you can beat the opponents, this kind of feature certainly does add to the cruelty of the game mode, since you're not able to even pause safely. However, if you're judged by how long you can last, well, this seems pretty odd. I don't really know the achievements behind this game mode since, for my own mental sake, I don't touch this mode or anything, but I think this fact is interesting enough as is. Something else that's interesting is this fact by Aizeque, which regards the inner workings of the game. Normally, moves in the game with no special effect, special effect being things like burying and whatnot, have a collision_attribute_normal effect that gives them a standard graphical hit. But in Mr. Game & Watch's down smash sweet spot, there's a typo present in the code that you can see on the screen right now, which causes no effect to show up at all. This is normally very easy to miss, as the sweet spot of the move typically buries opponents, which is a special effect, and thus has nothing to do with this code. However, if you land the sweet spot on, say, an opponent who's missed a tech, they can't be buried. Yet, when you land it, there's no graphical effect that appears at all. Compare this to the pitfall. The normal hit just gives you a typical bury effect. But when you throw a pitfall on an opponent who's missed a tech, there's this clear visual effect that pops up from this. Yet this type of effect is just completely missing with Game & Watch, thanks to this typo in the code. And I have to agree with Aizeque that this is pretty hilarious. Next, I had seen a tweet by a balancing act that showed off a little thing with Kirby and Wii Fit Trainer. To recreate it myself, you can see something sort of similar to this. I couldn't get it precisely like in the video, but here's a better representation of this effect. See, when Wii Fit is charging her neutral special, the orb in front of her has a small windbox around it. However, the effectiveness of this windbox grows the more percent you gain, so at 999%, this windbox all of a sudden becomes intensely effective. So much so that it can launch Kirby's rock all the way out to the side like this. I did test this with the metal box, and the effect gets drastically reduced when Kirby is metal. And since I know some people will ask, I tried it out with Kuklang too, and actually, Kuklang just straight up ignores it, much like how it does with windboxes as a whole. Finally, for this video, Griffins Charge has given me a cool fact regarding Rob's final smash. Normally, with Rob, his neutral special charges passively as time goes on. Its charge level is indicated by the light on his head, and at full charge that light goes crazy. However, if you use Rob's final smash at full charge, afterwards your charge will go back to stage 2. My assumption is that when the final smash gets initiated, your charge goes away completely, and in the duration of the final smash is when you get back to the second charge level. So it seems that activating your final smash acts as if you shot your normal laser beam, and releases the charge. However, I didn't actually find any evidence that the final smash gets stronger based on how much charge you had beforehand. Still pretty cool regardless. Anyhow, that'll do it for today's video. I'd like to thank my patrons Avenkaru, Burbo, Cody Benda, Felipe Morla, Elpidio Epic, Feurolant, Parade Dino, and Aman Shareef. If I keep getting any more patrons, I'm gonna have to stop saying their names verbally. But oh yeah, speaking of Patreon, I've added a new perk to my Patreon where, if you become a patron, you get access to an exclusive channel on my Discord server, which I use when making videos to poll the members on certain things like title suggestions or thumbnail comparisons, or if we just want to chat. The rules of my Discord do absolutely apply to this channel, but generally it's a lot more lax and personal, with me and my mod team. And speaking of my Discord, yeah, I totally revamped the server, giving it better categories, adding to my mod team, making it just a generally better place. We have plans for events in the future too, but for now it's just a nicer place to speak in. And as for the facts and questions channel on my Discord, I'm no longer using that specifically to get facts. Actually, I've been behind on all of your guys' submissions for a while now. It's incredibly hard and tedious to sift through so many comments and discussions I get to pinpoint explicit facts for the channel. So, a solution. I've made an official form that you can use to submit facts to the channel. If your fact or question is really complicated, you should still DM me on Twitter or Discord, since I do absolutely still read those, but if your fact or question is short and simple enough, please use this form. This is for Smash exclusively, so if you have something outside of Smash, just DM me. And since I am behind on your submissions, feel free to resend something you've told me in the past, just in case, because chances are I probably missed it. I'm not sure how this is going to end up working, but I want to at least try this form system, so cooperation is more than appreciated. And before I end this video off, I just want to briefly address the incredible bouts of injustice that have been circulating on social media recently. I'm not going to use my platform to speak intensively on the matter, but I just want everyone to know that your voices really matter in this. Please keep yourself educated, recognize the brutality and injustice in the system that America has, and speak on it. You don't even have to donate anywhere. So long as we keep this topic fresh in our minds, fresh on the press, relentlessly, we can force a change. The moment we stop is the moment this all just keeps continuing, completely unaffected by our efforts. Keep yourselves educated, please, and don't be afraid to speak your mind, even if you lose some friends or followers. It doesn't matter. Stay casual, and please stay reasonable. Thank you.